So you did 5 tours total, correct?
Correct.
5 tours. The third tour is when you got blown up by an IED. Lost your eye, lost both eyes, actually. Tell me about that. How'd that, like when you woke up blinded, what'd you think? What'd you feel? They were telling you weren't going to see again. How'd that hit you?
Well, it wasn't a great day. It was so I'll walk you through it. The blast, this was in Helmand province. I was actually primarily operated in Kandahar province throughout that deployment. This was maybe month 7, I think, of that deployment. And this was around June 15th, 2012. We were on sort of a last minute mission. And our only time in Helmand, because of just the nature of that particular mission, was to leave a Marine Special Operations unit that had been in a firefight, and the higher ups wanted to maintain presence there for whatever reasons, and in hindsight, probably not very good reasons. But that's kind of besides the point. If there's ever a fight that we can get in as SEALs, we generally raise our hand and ask to be in it. The broader policy implications or strategic implications aren't that important to us. And this is just something. I mean, they're important, but you just have to understand the mentality of a SEAL. Like, we're always looking for a fight. So I say that because the point is, I don't want to blame anybody else for what happened to me. I didn't have on that mission. Just my role in that platoon at the time was not one where I had to be on it. I wanted to be, and despite the fact that maybe it wasn't even a good strategic reason for us to even be going. Okay. And so I just have to distinguish between those two things a little bit, because I don't want to blame anybody for what happened. Now, generally speaking, in Helmand and southern Kandahar, the biggest threat isn't necessarily small arms fire or insurgents running around trying to shoot you, because they're not very good shots and they're not very tactically proficient. And they're usually shooting at us and running. But what they're very good at is laying IEDs literally everywhere. Pretty easy to make. It takes a couple pieces of wood, some wire, a battery, a detonator, and an explosive charge to make, just out of some basic fertilizer compounds. So these are rather easy to make, and they like to put them everywhere. And that's our biggest threat, because they maim you. They don't necessarily kill you, and they force our movements. We have to walk in single file, even though that's not a tactically proficient way to walk and patrol. You generally want to walk in, in maneuver elements so that you can support each other and flank the enemy. But you can't do that in these areas, because you can only walk in places that have been cleared.
Do you think they're smart enough to know that, and that's why they place them, or are they just placing them haphazardly to kill people?
Both. I mean, because it's smart to place them haphazardly, because it creates chaos, right? It makes it impossible to anticipate where they might be. It's easy to think, well, there's probably some in a doorway, or there's probably some along this path. But when your guys start getting blown up in the most random places ever, we had one go off on a hilltop in the middle of nowhere. Now, it went low order, meaning the main charge didn't blow up, so the guys who sat on it didn't get hurt. But this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. It is the most random of places. And so once you figure that out, you're like, you just have to plan for them being everywhere. The one that hit me was sort of just in the middle of a courtyard. Houses in Afghanistan in the rural areas are, they look like mud huts with compounds. Like, they're walled compounds with, mud walled rooms inside, and then courtyards where they have their animals and, store their farming equipment or whatever they have in there. And these abandoned, and a lot of them are abandoned, and that's where the most likely is that there's going to be IEDs laid around them, because Taliban will use them as fighting positions, and then retreat back and then arm the IEDs, so that when you take over their fighting position, there's IEDs in it, which is basically what happened to us. And so we're clearing this place, and one of my interpreters was responding to somebody who called him over, and then all of a sudden it felt like I got hit by a truck. And so the last thing I remember not the last thing. This thing didn't knock me unconscious, so I remember the entire thing. But basically, Rahman, he's an Afghan interpreter. He's being called over, and all of a sudden an explosion hits. And it's not clear to me at the time what exactly happened. It just felt like I got hit by a truck. You get knocked out. You're not sure what knocked you out. My first reaction was to just feel my legs, and I still felt them, so that was a good sign. But I still knew I'd been hit by something. It didn't take me long to figure out what had happened, because then I could hear Rahman like in pain, like moaning, and this very, people need to realize when in the movies, when a soldier gets blown up or shot or wounded, they scream a lot, but that's not how it is in real life. You don't have the energy to scream. You just been mortally wounded. So screaming is not what you do. It's more like a real visceral groan. It's like pain manifested into sound. It's a very memorable sound. And so I knew exactly what had happened. And he lost all 4 limbs right away. He was a smaller guy, and it was a fairly large IED.
Is he the one? Is he the one
very hard ground?
Is he the one that detonated it?
Yeah, by stepping on it. Yep.
Ouch.
And so so I took all the fragmentation from that just directly head on. So my face looked like I'd been hit by like a shotgun. A bird shot is sort of what my face looked like, and the rest of my body looked like that as well. Probably the more severe wounds from the waist down, just because that's closer to the IED. Luckily, I was wearing Kevlar boxers, so it was just a little trick that we had, which were enough to at least save that part of me. But my knees and legs were pretty torn up, and my face was torn up as well. But obviously, the most permanent damage was to my eyes, because a bird shot to the face, even if it doesn't structurally damage your face, well, you can just imagine how much damage that does. And so I was blind. I didn't know why I was blind. I just thought there was dirt in my eyes. And I sort of lived with that mentality for the next few weeks, frankly, like knowing I was blind, but not believing it, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
Which was maybe a coping mechanism, maybe this sort of self-deception, by the intentional self-deception. And that was healthy, frankly. So 45 minutes later, a medevac helicopter comes, and I get up and I'm able to walk to it, blind, but again, just firmly believing I'm not blind. Again, maybe to just save myself some insanity. They put me into a medically induced coma right away on the helicopter, and I don't wake up for maybe 5 days. I wake up in Germany. And by the time I wake up, I'd already been in a couple surgeries. They removed my right eye because it was so badly damaged that it was the medically proficient thing to do was to just remove it, enucleate it in medical terms is what they call it. And my left eye was badly damaged, and they didn't think I'd see again out of it, for good reason. Lots of shrapnel had shot through it, and I couldn't see out of it. It caused a cataract. So, a cataract, for people who don't know, you hear about them all the time. Old people get them. It basically means your lens in your eye, which is about in the middle of your eye, structurally speaking, has deteriorated to an extent that you need to remove it. It's not a big deal for somebody in their 60s. It's a surgery that happens all the time. They just remove the lens out of your eye, and maybe they replace it with a fake lens. With mine, that lens was just destroyed, so you can't just replace it. My iris is broken, still is, causes a lot of issues, especially driving at night. My retina is pretty badly damaged. I've got weird blind spots and flashes all over it that are annoying. But I wear a contact like I'm wearing now, that is a miracle contact. It pretty much corrects my vision to 20/20. It's not perfectly 20/20 vision because of all the damage that I just talked about, but it's a miracle that I can see it all.
Well, dude, you didn't need Kevlar underwear, bro. You got balls of steel, because when you woke up, you ended up going back 2 more times. Like, dude, were you just like gung-ho like a son of a bitch, or what's the Like wouldn't you just think to yourself, holy shit, that's enough of that? You went back 2 more times.
Yeah, maybe that's again, it's hard to explain to people the SEAL mentality. It really is about going back. And, I didn't really get to go back the way I wanted to go back. I didn't go back to Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria. The roles that they would allow me to go back in were more in the intelligence operations kind of roles, which I was perfectly happy with. I mean, I just didn't want to be out of my life.